Effort to limit who buys them goes against the Second Amendment. California's Attorney General already said they filed an appeal.
Their goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment and our firearms freedoms.
Force the laws that Congress gave us and weighing in on Second Amendment and gun control issues.
This is thanks to the Honorable Judge William Hayes, and it is a big one.
Scalia goes through the developmental process of the Second Amendment, and I think that you're misinterpreting what he's saying. So now listen to me here.
Well, Judge Hayes just overturned that, saying that it is unconstitutional.
Scalia goes through the developmental process of the Second Amendment, and I think that you're misinterpreting what he's saying. So now listen to me here.
Judge overturns gun law. All right, folks, hold on to your hats because we've got some big news hot off the press. Judge William Hayes just dropped the legal shocker that's shaking up the world of gun control in California. Picture this. A major gun control law, once standing tall and mighty, has just been knocked down like a house of cards. That's right, folks. It's a legal victory dance for the Second Amendment supporters out there. Now let's talk about Judge William Hayes for a sec. This guy isn't your average judge sitting behind a desk sipping coffee. Oh no, he's a legal powerhouse with a knack for shaking things up. And boy, did he deliver this time. With one swift stroke of his legal pen, Judge Hayes sent shockwaves through the California gun control scene. So what exactly was this law that got the boot? Drum roll, please. It's none other than the infamous one gun a month scheme. Yep, you heard that right. This law was like the bouncer at the club, telling you that you can only party with one firearm every 30 days. But guess what? Judge Hayes wasn't having any of it. He looked that law straight in the eye and said, "Not on my watch." You see, folks, this wasn't just any run-of-the-mill legal battle. This was a showdown between the rights of the people and the heavy hand of the government regulation. And guess who came out on top? That's right, the good old Second Amendment got a big win thanks to Judge Hayes.
Interesting issues in the year ahead is the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms.
Effort to limit who buys them goes against the Second Amendment. California's Attorney General already said they filed an appeal.
Their goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment and our firearms freedoms.
California's assault weapons ban has been ruled unconstitutional. That's according to a federal judge.
But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about throwing out the law. Nope. Judge Hayes had to drop some serious legal knowledge to make this victory stick. He had to sift through mountains of arguments, wade through legal jargon, and cut through the red tape to get to the heart of the matter. And you know what he found? He found that this new law was about as unconstitutional as wearing socks with sandals. Now, we don't know about you, but we've got to give props to Judge Hayes for having the guts to stand up for what's right. In a world where it feels like government overreach is the norm, it's refreshing to see someone who's willing to say, enough is enough. So here's to Judge William Hayes, the legal eagle who swooped in and saved the day for all the freedom-loving folks out there. Let's raise a toast to this legal victory and hope that it's just the beginning of a brighter, more gun-friendly future in California.
He pointed out a Supreme Court ruling back in 2008 that said that the Second Amendment is not absolute.
Quick follow-up. I mean, so what you're telling us that Civil Rights Division will not protect Second Amendment rights?
Force the laws that Congress gave us and weighing in on Second Amendment and gun control issues.
What we're doing is we are subverting the Second Amendment.
Historical relevance argument rejected. All right, buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive into a legal showdown that's got more twists and turns than a roller coaster ride. So picture this. California's got this controversial law, the one gun a month scheme, right? Well, in a desperate attempt to defend it, California's legal team pulled out all the stops, including what can only be described as a Hail Mary pass, the historical relevance argument. Now, what on earth does historical relevance have to do with gun control laws, you might ask? Well, that's exactly what the judge thought too. California's legal eagles tried to argue that this law was somehow justified by looking back at old-timey regulations on gunpowder transportation and storage. Yeah, you heard me right. Gunpowder regulations. But hold on just a minute there, because Judge Hayes wasn't buying it. In fact, he pretty much laughed it off as absurd.
And I support their ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
But you guys did not participate in that.
Yep.
Do you disregard Second Amendment rights? Is that not important?
In the Heller case, the Supreme Court made clear that the Second Amendment protects firearms in common use.
It is the Second Amendment, of course, is an important part of our Constitution, Congressman.
And you know what? He was spot on. I mean, come on. Comparing restrictions on gunpowder limits on how many guns you can buy in a month? It's like trying to justify a speed limit by pointing to laws about horse-drawn carriages. It just doesn't make any sense. So why did California even bother with such a far-fetched argument? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it seems like they were grasping at straws. Maybe they thought they could pull a fast one on the judge by throwing in some fancy legal jargon and hoping he wouldn't notice. But sorry, California, no dice this time. What this whole debacle really highlights is just how far some folks will go to defend their pet laws, even when it means twisting logic into a pretzel. But hey, at least we've got a Judge Hayes to thank for seeing through the smoke and mirrors and calling it like it is. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, it's a reminder that when it comes to the law, you can't just throw any old argument at the wall and hope it sticks. You've got to come correct with some solid reasoning, or you'll end up looking like a fool in front of the judge, and nobody wants that.
This is thanks to the Honorable Judge William Hayes, and it is a big one.
It goes through the developmental process of the Second Amendment, and I think that you're misinterpreting what he's saying. So, now listen to me here.
Well, Judge Hayes just overturned that, saying that it is unconstitutional.
I'm prepared to accept the way the Supreme Court has interpreted the Second Amendment.
One of those is the whole one gun a month scheme, or OGM. It's also known as gun ration.
Implications: plaintiffs' rights denied. Alright, let's talk about some serious stuff. The Second Amendment and how it got tangled up in this whole mess. So you've got these folks, let's call them the plaintiffs, right? They're just regular citizens who want to exercise their constitutional right to bear arms. But then along comes California with its one gun a month rule, trying to put a damper on their freedom. Now here's where things get interesting. The plaintiffs, bless their hearts, decided they weren't gonna take this lying down. They stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute, this law is stomping all over our Second Amendment rights." And you know what? They had a point. Think about it. The Second Amendment guarantees every American the rights to own firearms. It's like the ultimate VIP access to the gun show. But when California slapped this restriction on how many guns you could buy in a month, it was like saying, sorry folks, the Second Amendment only applies on Tuesdays. But the plaintiffs weren't having any of it. They argued that by limiting their ability to purchase firearms within a certain time frame, California was basically denying them their Second Amendment rights. And you know what? They were right. I mean, imagine if someone told you that you could only exercise your right to free speech once a month. You'd be up in arms, wouldn't you? Well, that's exactly how the plaintiffs felt about this whole situation. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the Second Amendment isn't just some dusty old relic gathering cobwebs in the Constitution. It's a living, breathing right that every American should be able to exercise freely. And when the government tries to put shackles on that right, it's up to folks like the plaintiffs to stand up and say, "Not on my watch." So here's to the plaintiffs for taking a stand for their Second Amendment rights. And here's hoping that their victory in court sends a clear message. You can't trample on the Constitution, no matter how hard you try.
These plaintiffs' rights were violated and decided to grant the summary judgment in their favor.
Place to litigate Second Amendment because they had the most draconian gun control regime in the country.
California can be absolutely squashed by the appeals and the stays and everything else that comes afterwards. Well, they looked up laws that regulated the transportation and storage of gunpowder.
Pending appeal, 30-day stay. Well folks, we've reached a bit of a nail-biter in this legal saga. Just when it seemed like the dust had settled and victory was in sight, along comes a 30-day stay to throw a wrench into the works. So what's this all about? Let's break it down. You see, after Judge Hayes dropped the hammer on California's one gun a month law, everyone thought it was game over. The plaintiffs were popping champagne, and gun enthusiasts were breathing a sigh of relief. But then, out of nowhere, comes this 30-day stay, like a plot twist in a courtroom drama. What does it mean? Well, it's like hitting the pause button on a movie right before the big finale. It gives California time to dust themselves off, lick their wounds, and decide whether they want to appeal the judge's ruling. And trust me, they're probably cooking up some legal maneuvers as we speak. Now I know what you're thinking, but didn't the judge already say the law was unconstitutional? What's there to appeal? Good question. You see, in the wild world of law and order, there's always room for another round of legal jousting. California's not going down without a fight, and they'll use every trick in the book to try and turn the tables. So what does this mean for the plaintiffs and all the folks cheering for freedom? Well, it means we're in for a bit of a roller coaster ride. Just when it seemed like victory was within grasp, we're back to playing the waiting game. But hey, let's not lose hope just yet. After all, a 30-day stay might sound like a setback, but it's just a speed bump on the road to justice. The plaintiffs and their legal team are ready to go the distance, and they won't back down until freedom rings loud and clear. So grab your popcorn and settle in, folks. The legal drama ain't over till the final gavel falls. And who knows, maybe this 30-day stay is just the breather we need before the next thrilling chapter in this epic showdown. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.